Hi, this is John Avery, and this is my progress presentation for Portfolio 3. To start out, I chose three goals for myself, three SMART goals. The first being to create a kinetic typography video. The second was to take a website and either update it or create a brand new website for someone involved in some sort of ministry or missionary role. And the third one was to watch these three lynda.com tutorials that would help me with my future trip to Cuba and the video that I'm creating with the team that's going there next month. All three of these I did complete, and so now I'll just go through a little bit of what I actually achieved for those. For the kinetic typography, I created this video based off of this little message that David Platt gave at Urbana 2015, a young adult missions conference. And so this took a lot of work, but I was really happy with it in the end and glad that I chose this as my goal because it was something that I had been putting off for quite a long time. And so finally being able to just sit down and do this because of the accountability and the goal that I set myself for this class has been really helpful. And so I was really happy with the work that I did for this, which I won't show now as part of the presentation, but it's there. For lynda.com, the three tutorials that I ended up watching were creative DSLR video techniques, the art of video interviews, DSLR video tips, lighting. Those three, each of them were very helpful in their own aspects for what they were trying to teach you. The first one was the most beneficial, and I recommend it to anyone who is interested in really creating any sort of video because of the way that it takes you, his process of creating a video from the beginning to the end, everything in between, even including interviews and lighting as the other two videos went more in depth, but it was very helpful, and so I really did learn a lot from watching these lynda.com tutorials, and so I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do that. The final goal that I worked on, at one point I did want to finish this site completely, and you, Emily, decided, or not decided, but told me that it may be hard to get everything that I need working with clients and emailing back and forth, and that was completely correct, and I'm glad that I was able to change my goal just so I felt more accomplished by still being able to reach the goal that I ended up setting myself to just begin that process and begin that conversation, figuring out what they needed and doing the project inventory to figure out where the content would go, what kind of content they needed, and getting the different aspects from her to create this website for her and update it. And so that is still in the process of being made, and now that it's started and it's nearly to that point where I'll be able to get in and really start putting things together. And so I'm looking forward to working on that. And that's my biggest next step, is to just finish this project with her, and I'm excited to do that. I believe the most relevant goal that I created for myself here out of these three would be the kinetic typography video because of the many different assets that it contains within itself. I spent an entire day just designing each one of those different pieces of text to create some sort of pleasing arrangement of the words in order to then animate them. And so there was that design aspect, but then there was still the after effects and just even the going through all the different sources that I could have chosen and narrowing it down to exactly what I really wanted to do that meant something to me, was very helpful to me and helped me to even refine my process within each one of those so that by the end, each one of them, when I started each aspect or each few seconds of the video would take much longer than by the end where I was starting to get the hang of it, and it was just speeding along. And so it was very helpful just to help me relax within my editing, especially on After Effects, and solidify those skills that I've been working on there, as well as I think it's going to be very helpful to just show that different aspect of storytelling, that you can take something as simple as an audio source and um, do something special with it that maybe most people won't think of. The one thing with that, the time management, I think overall I did fairly well with my time management because I was able to complete each one of those tasks that I had set myself, those goals. Um, I think in the beginning I would have liked to have just sat down and really searched a lot more to find that source that I wanted to create the kinetic typography video out of, because that did create a lot of uh, I guess stress towards the end when I was really just like sitting down trying to finish it so it would be done in time. But overall, I think I did fairly well with that, and it was finished, and so that's something in itself to show that time management aspect. But one thing I did learn as part of that is that I've realized a huge part of any of the work that I do, and I said 90%, I'm not sure exactly what percentage that is, that could be completely wrong, but is pre-planning in my head. And I've realized now sometimes I would put things off and then feel bad about it, but then as I've gone and grown professionally and even in my skills, I've realized when I'm putting it off, it's not actually putting it off because I don't want to work on it. It's because I'm thinking about it and going over each of the details and everything that I need to do and planning everything in my head so that when I sit down and actually work on it, the production process goes so much more smoothly. Um, and so in the end, the final product is better than if I kind of just sat down from the beginning and immediately started trying to pull pieces together without having a vision or plan for what it was I was working on. And so that's one thing that I'm glad I've been able to learn in this process, so that I can go forward and even just work on that process even more and solidify how I go about that pre-planning stage. My advice for future students in this class and in other portfolio classes would be to um, really be conscious of the goals that you're creating for yourself and the time aspects that you have. Uh, Creating goals isn't something that I've always done myself, and I can see the benefit of it. But since I had never done that goal setting for myself, I didn't know exactly what that would look like in accomplishing those goals, especially within that time frame, as well as having the three goals that we were supposed to create. I'm one that wants to create something meaningful or do something meaningful for each one of those goals, rather than trying to find something that's going to be real quick and not worth my time really. But I think the advice in that aspect would be to pick something that will be meaningful to you, and that doesn't mean that it has to take you hours and hours to complete. Any sort of little goal that will be helpful, that you've been putting off, or that you just thought of, that would be helpful and relevant to what you're trying to accomplish professionally or personally. Even those little things are meaningful goals that I think would work in these situations, especially so that you don't over um, overcommit to creating these goals. But then as well as just relax with that, because it's not the end if you don't finish each one of those goals. It gives you something to still continue to work for, and hopefully you learn something in the process. So it's not the end of the world if you can't reach those goals by the end when you thought you would. And so that wraps that up. So thank you, and goodbye.